What's up, everybody? This is Grant at Cause Artist. Welcome to another episode of the Disruptors for Good podcast. Today, we're going to chat with David Simnick, the CEO and co founder of Soapbox, which is a company that creates organic hygiene products. And for every sort of product sold, they donate to people in need, to organizations in need, and they've done that 10 million times. So it's been a really, really remarkable story over the last decade for David and his team. They've been through the ups and downs of starting, a business from scratch out of his kitchen, right? I mean, it's a really incredible story of perseverance too. I think he really talks about and's honest about where they failed early on and then where they succeeded later on. And I think it's just some really, really interesting educational tips on being a social entrepreneur and really what to focus on and how impact is sort of this driving force to become a better entrepreneur in general. And he talks about the impact that they have made and some of the statistics behind what happens when consumers buy from businesses who are building these ecosystems of giving back. I think it's a really, really impressive, and we're finally getting data back that shows when we buy from social impact brands what actually happens on the back end from an impact point of view, not only globally but here locally in America. It's a really powerful conversation. I love geeking out over a lot of this stuff around e-commerce and branding and the impact model of who they're working with organizations and how they have really really worked together with organizations who are doing amazing work. It's really just been a really cool journey for David, man. I'm so happy for him and his team, and he turned down an acquisition offer, right? And we go over how that process was like and how tough it was, or how gratifying it was that he didn't take it, and some of the thought process behind that. So hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, of course. And as always, Grant at causartist.com if you have any questions or remarks or people you think might be interesting for the show. Also check out Investing in Impact, the new podcast that we have where I interview a bunch of people from the finance side of things and what their thought process is like in investing in social impact companies and social entrepreneurs. Also have a new podcast called Tools for Scale, where I talk about a lot about these digital tools that I use at Cause Artists, but other people are using, and the power that these products have to help you grow, your online business or just your company in general, whether you're brick and mortar or online. There's so many amazing tools out there that we can all use to grow our brand and our business. And it's been a really kind of a side passion project of mine. So I'm finally glad that's coming out, and it is out, so you can subscribe to that as well. Tools for Scale. Again, thank you for all the support, all the feedback. It's been a great journey. I can't wait to share more things that we have coming out, and I think it's just going to be a really great future ahead for Cause Artists and hopefully for the industry. So hope everybody's doing well. Talk to you next week. Thanks. Bye. So how I usually like to start these conversations is just about a individual's journey. Usually when I talk to people, they're sort of in their sort of life's work mode is a big word, right? But I mean something that they've dedicated a lot of their life to, at least, right? So let's talk about. I guess we could go back, maybe start at the time. Look like Teach of America and the founding of Soapbox kind of blended together a little bit. So do you want to talk about that sort of origin story of I guess how 2010 was like? Seemed to probably be a pretty hectic year for you.
Yeah, it was. So I'll take you all the way back, Grant.
Okay, let's do that.
So it's 2009, and I was working for the United States Agency for International Development, and I wanted to change the way that we were building a bunch of water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Okay.
So I was working at this subcontractor for the United States Agency for International Development, and I was the lowest of low on this totem pole at this one organization. And they had me researching previous projects that either were a success or, had a long way to go. And I would just read these massive reports trying to find chief of parties, which basically were project leaders that then we would reach out and see if they wanted to be bid on a project that we were trying to go after. And they just like they were good people and everything was fantastic. But in all of these after action reports I kept on reading, I was like, it just doesn't seem like we're focusing a lot on hygiene. Whereas there was a lot of growing focus on water.
Mm.
There wasn't so much on sanitization. And I got to give the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation a lot of credit because they drove a lot of focus towards how important sanitization is in terms of people's health and public health.
Mhm.
But there just wasn't a lot of focus on hygiene back in 2009. So I called up one of my best friends and I said, "Hey, we're going to start a soap company. And every time we sell an item like Tom's shoes, we're going to donate a bar of soap." And he was like, "What?" Like, what? Are you kidding?
The normal response.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I think the other, like, he was just like, I don't know if you've heard of these companies called Unilever or Procter and Gamble or Colgate Palmolive. They're just kind of small. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, how are we going to survive and thrive and fight against these massive behemoths? And with a lot of gumption and a ton of hubris and little know-how, I just Googled how to make soap, started making it in my kitchen. Kid you not, literally started a miniature fight club in my college house while all being 22 years old. Which the funny thing about all this, Grant, is that like people legit thought I was starting a fight club. Like a
Explain.
couple of my friends like would cut like they came up to me and they're like, "Yo, dude, I'm in." I'm like, "What are you in on? Like, if you want to come to the traders market or the farmers market with me and like help me sell some soap," and they're like, "Cool, cool, good cover."
Good cover.
And I was like, "What? Why are you taking your shirt off? This is weird." So, and then I think the other funniest part of this is, and it's absolutely true, is my landlord, I'm pretty sure, thought I was making meth.
I
Cause
can see
like you're
that. I can see
making
that.
soap. You're totally like, it's and thankfully Breaking Bad wasn't that popular. And I don't even know if it was out by then. But the point is that people assume that I was either trying to fight them or sell them meth, which were like the farthest thing away from this do-gooder idea of I want to sell natural personal care products that then can fuel giving back. We started with incredibly humble origins and just kept on growing.
When you called your friend, did he eventually is he the eventually come on as a partner, as a co-founder, or did he was he just there for you to be like, no, don't do this, and then that was it? You never heard from him again? Or is he
I wish. So Eric, not I wish that like I wish Eric were still a part of the team today. But Eric and then Dan joined soonly thereafter, and then Stephanie joined about a year in. Those are the original four. We kept on building it for the first year and a half, 2 years, and then Stephanie was like, "I want to go back to grad school." I was a teacher through the Teach for America program, and then Dan and Eric both were IBM consultants. And then, at the beginning of 2013, Eric got us on a phone and was like, "Hey guys, I don't think I want to do this full time." So we just kept on building and growing, and Eric and I are still best friends. Stephanie and I are still best friends. We all text pretty frequently and just stay in each other's lives. I was the de facto I was a part of both wedding parties of both Eric and Stephanie, so that's good. But I think what's really interesting is the most important decision. I will say this time and time again that you could make as a early entrepreneur is who you building this with.
Mhm.
Because I am straight up work married to Dan Dahl.
Yeah.
Like I
Huge, man. It's
and
huge.
I yeah, but it's also like I know how to order for him in every type of genre of restaurant. I know what upsets him. I know his sleep schedule. I know like I know what will make him happy. Like it just you get so you're just in the trenches. There are weeks that he spends more time with me than he does his actual family and
Yeah.
wife.
Oh no, I
So
believe that. You have to
and
too.
you get right. And I think also that you will the person that you choose as your co-founder, like you will start to become more like, and they will become more like you. So do they have abilities and strengths that complement your weaknesses and vice versa? And I can say, without a shadow of doubt that Dan Dahl is a better man in a lot of ways than I am. Therefore, thankfully, over the years, I've started to become more like him, and I would hope that he would say the same about me.
The origin stories to me are just some of the most important ones, and I think what now back in 2009 and 10, there wasn't. I mean, I think the whole reason I started Cause Artists is because I saw these startups coming out of sort of the Tom's revolution of that sort of idea of a business model, right? And sort of seeing how impact models change now, over time. But I thought the one thing you said was interesting was that like, from day one, it was sort of going to be an impact brand, right? At the foundations of the company. And when you said, hey, when Eric said, did you hear Unilever? Did you hear all these companies out there? And I would say that, yeah, but your focus was totally different, right? And from even back then when you were so young and youthful, did you see that there was a market there for that, and that's why you were super super like passionate and confident that like it would work because we just need a little piece. We don't need all the piece of Unilever. We just need like 1% of their sales.
I still to this day have no idea how I had that much confidence that we somehow were going to do this. And I think it's one of those strange. So we've experienced phenomenal growth,
Mm-hmm.
and it is humbling to now know that our company is bigger than some other companies that I've looked up to for years.
Right.
And the good that we're able to do is equivalent to, in terms of the actual monetary grant writing that we're able to do every year, is equivalent to like a small family office.
Wow.
Which that is my dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is our dream, was how can we help worthy 501c3s get out of the process of holding galas
Mm-hmm.
and trying to raise more money, and have them just focus on better, more sustainable, community-led strategies to genuinely empower people through health and hygiene. Right? Like that.
Especially now when they can't meet,
Grant, we've been telling people to wash their hands for 20 seconds for 10 years. And all of a sudden, so I say this with a gigantic caveat. We wish COVID never happened.
Of course.
Right?
No,
yeah. There is tremendous loss and suffering that has happened. But there have been super funny moments where people now have come to us and they're like, hey, we really care about health and hygiene, and we know that you care. And like, we've been telling you guys to care about health and hygiene for 10 years. And I feel like the vindicated hipster,
right?
That is like, I've been saying this. I found this underground band. I said they were cool for years. I saw them when they only had a crowd of like 20 people. It's so anyways. And then I think another funny moment that's happened is like my friends have called me out of nowhere, and I almost feel like that Breaking Bad like story all over again, because people have been like, yo, Dave, I hear you have soap. I'm like, first off, I haven't talked to you since high school. Like, what type of transaction is it? Like, same thing with hand sanitizer. Like, one of my friends text messaged me a couple of days ago, even in June, and was like, yo, you have hand sanitizer? I was like, dude, go to our website. Go to any of the retailers who stock our products. He's like, yeah, I know, but do you have hand sanitizer?
Like you come get it from your house? Like,
yeah. He was like, when can I stop by? I was like, go to our website. I was like, I won't, like, this is not, I'll meet you by the corner, like bring like dollar bill, like what?
Yeah. How early on was the nonprofits? Did you seek them out? Did they seek you out? Like, how early on was that part where you could where the company was at a place, right, where you could actually make those commitments?
Yeah, so I've done a terrible job telling this story. The whole reason was to start a company that did 1 for 1. Everything that we sold was supposed to be a natural product that we felt really excited about. The products have always been of stellar quality. We've never wavered on that. The design has improved greatly. Our first design sucked. Our second design sucked. Our third design sucked. Our fourth design somehow sucked even more. Not
I love
like
how you showcase it on the website too. Like, I'll link to it in the show notes. But like, you go through the history of like the
Grant, it
size.
was
It's pretty
so
great. It's
bad.
pretty funny.
It
It's
was
pretty
look
funny.
for any social entrepreneur, for any entrepreneur out there that's listening to this program, so bad. It was just and
Maybe it's a case
like
study one day. It's all right. It's all right. It
yeah,
worked out, right?
it's just like I think if our story should be a lesson towards any one principle, it should be about resilience.
Mm, great point.
We've got up and dusted ourselves off after getting kicked off the horse so many times. And so many times we should have failed that people who we respected told us to like hang it up, go home, try something different, don't waste your time. And just time and time again, we just kept on being like, no, we're gonna do it. We're gonna try again. We're gonna launch a new brand. We're gonna go after this account. And thankfully, in 2017, we had some pretty wide distribution with really bad branding. We started losing those accounts because we knew that the branding just wasn't going to hold. And to the whole team's credit, and Dan's and Janet's and Jessica's, and now we've hired a lot more people, and especially Billy Collins, who was with us at the time, in terms of helping us create new branding and shepherding through that whole marketing process. We worked with a phenomenal marketing firm. But anyways, point is, 2017 was really dark. Someone came and offered us an acquisition offer. It was a really bad offer, but it was something, and we were like, well, maybe this is it. Maybe we
Right.
should, go and do something else and take all of this validated learning and put it towards something different. And thank God we said no, because we kept on getting the response on this new branding, which is the branding that you see today, that it would do phenomenally better than what we currently had in market. But it was really difficult because we're like, do we believe in these reports, or do we like, just do we just try to land the plane as softly as possible into this acquisition? But we believe the reports because the people who were trying to acquire us kept on changing the deal. So we were just like, I don't know if we necessarily want to go work for these people,
Right.
because every time we talk to them, the deal just keeps getting worse. So it was hysterical at one point. And actually sending that email where we turned it down might be one of the best moments of my life.
Do you still
Like,
have
I
it?
remember. Oh, go ahead.
You
Sorry,
still
man.
have it? Do you still have the email?
Oh yeah,
You print that bad
totally.
boy out.
Yeah, dude. I went to like 11 right there, but like no, like so. Okay, so we press send on that email. I shut the laptop, and then like all of a sudden, the rush of like yeah is like then goes into like, oh no, all the problems of the
I
company
was
was
gonna
all
take a
mine.
vacation.
Yeah, womp womp womp. So we launched a new brand in 2018, and we start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we start seeing really good momentum and progress. 2019, we had a lot of successful launches with new customers and deepening relationships with current customers. And then 2020 happens, and we had all these really deep relationships with all of these customers that we had broken bread and had many cups of coffee with, and like they trusted us, they knew us, we knew them, and then we were already set up in their system. So as COVID started to pick up, they were like, we need as much liquid hand soap as possible. And like, well, we also can make hand sanitizer. We've had that in our production schedule,
Mhm.
and what a future production of new items. And they were like, yes, and we'll take like millions of units. And we're like, okay, all right. So what'd you say?
Oh shit! Now we gotta go actually
Yeah,
make.
absolutely. Yeah, I was like, I'm not like, I feel completely fine swearing. I think the word was more of the F variety,
Yes, for sure.
but
For
we
sure.
we literally on like I remember one of the first calls we had was with Wegmans, and we were like, all right, cool. So Wegmans, we can get you these 50,000 liquid hand soaps, like no problem. And they were like, cool. And we're like, so we also make hand sanitizer. Like, how many of those would you want? And they were like, all right, 1,000,000. And we were like, I'm sorry, what? Who? What? Did you? We went from 50,000 liquid hand soaps to 1,000,000 hand sanitizers, and they were like, yeah, no, if you can do it. And we were like, yes, we can do this. And like we hung up the phone, and we're like, can we do this? We're like, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, we. So I think what happened is, in a very short amount of time, our company and our ability to give grew very rapidly over the past couple months. And now that has built a platform of how we can expand and grow the brand into the places that we've always wanted to be. and to support it with the marketing efforts and the awareness driving efforts that we've always wanted to do. So what that means is that, we're going to grow. It took us 10 years to donate 10 million bars. This year alone, we should be able to donate 15 million,
Jesus.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like that is so exciting.
So the impact model has stayed the same
from day one.
Day one. That's pretty powerful, man. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think being sustainable as a company is, especially as like a social enterprise, a impact brand. I think we so bad, I think, want to be able to make that impact, first. But I think being 10 years in it, I think probably after year 2, you're like, okay, I need to focus on the business 80% of the time and maybe the impact 20% of the time, rather than the reverse. Because in order for that impact to happen, the business has to obviously succeed. So how has, I guess, from your perspective, taking a step back now, right, 10 years later, have you looked back at the impact that has been made and kind of pat yourself on the back's a bad term, right? But take a deep breath and be like, man, we really did something like really cool. Like, we're still doing it, right? But like, I think taking the time to reflect on, impacting people's lives in a small way, whether big or small, doesn't matter, because a small thing could be a big thing to another person, right? What has been like the reaction from your impact partners, right? Whether it's here in America or globally, what have, over the years, have you heard back from them? Like, just feedback and sort of just discussions with them have to be pretty powerful.
It's a great question, Grant. We are incredibly honored and privileged to work with so many amazing partners. And the feedback that we've gotten is that the work that they're doing, the work that our customers make possible, because the way that we view ourselves is we're just a conduit, right? Like, someone's on a shelf,
Right.
and they move their hand 6 inches over to the left. Instead of like buying like a Dove product, they buy a Soapbox product. That enables someone to get access to health and hygiene in India or down the street at the local homeless shelter.
Right.
It could be either. And one of the things that we do is on the back of each and every one of our products is something called the Hope Code. And you can actually take that unique code on that one particular item to our website, punch it in, and see exactly where that other one for one goes. So I think for us, our commitment to our customers for that transparency is incredibly important. What's so cool is our partners basically come to us and they're like, hey, we have this big, bold, crazy idea in terms of aid partners, and we want you to fund it. And most of the times, because we've had 4 or 5 years and we've done audits, and they've been audited by Charity Navigator and GuideStar and all these other ones, and we're just like, great, do it. That's awesome. Do it. We'll fund it. So some statistics that I think are absolutely insane and that like get me out of bed every morning. We saw an 85% reduction on diarrhea-related illnesses in a 6-month longitudinal study in 2 of the most eastern provinces of India, where it was us, it was Rotary International, and it was, I'm forgetting the other partner, but basically Clean the World was our implementing partner that we then funded all the soap for that to happen over 6 months. This was tens of thousands of children of which the study was done over. And if you see an 85% reduction in diarrhea-related illnesses, of which diarrhea cause death is one of the top 5 reasons why children die in the world, right? So like, so the craziest,
it's like malaria than like diarrhea. It's crazy,
right?
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah,
which makes no sense, right? Like, you have malnutrition, you have acute respiratory diseases, like that. It doesn't make, like, children should not be dying because they can't get access to clean water and hygiene, right? Children shouldn't be dying for any of like preventable reasons in the first place, but because of soap, right? Or water, like that is just, in my opinion, that's an inefficiency in the global supply chain.
Yeah. No,
that is caused by politics, or is caused by mismanagement or inequity, or whatever, however the lens you want to do that. So for us, it was always just like, cool, what if you could actually turn what some people think is this big, bad, terrible thing of capitalism into an engine that actually like funds back into the inequalities that this system creates.
Hmm.
And I'm a capitalist. Like
Yeah.
I love seeing capital work efficiently.
Yeah.
I just love also seeing people care, as the more educated the consumer base gets, about where they're spending their capital. Because you change where someone spends their dollar and you can change social good.
You could change anything, any problem in the world can be changed by consumers shifting their consumer power in dollars. I mean, that's just a fact, you know. I mean, it's just the consumer dollar is more powerful than your vote. I mean, that's however dark you want to think that is, or depressing, whatever. At this moment in time, it is more powerful because you actually can change somebody's life by buying from a certain brand or a certain way you buy a product. And I think it's a bit. I've been doing cause artists for 7 years, right? So I was a little bit right behind you, but just in the last decade to see the shift in consumer habits has been huge, right? Has been
Crazy,
massive. And I would say
crazy.
that these partners that you're talking with, there's probably no way they could have done the impact that they have done without consumers shifting their buying habits, right? Which then trickles down to that 85% figure. And I'm sure there's endless figures that we could talk about, right? That comes off the back of that.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record. I agree with everything you just said. But it is a privilege and honor to work with the people that we do and the team that I'm humbled to work with here.
Let's talk about the growth for a little bit. Just some business questions a little bit. Is retail, I think, is weird because we look at retail as being not dead, but it's slowed down in like certain sectors. But you see sort of grocery, right? Like the food and beverage industry, kind of that retail industry exploding a little bit. So like from the business side, like online versus retail, obviously 2020 will be a bit
Yeah.
abnormal and a blip on the map, I'm sure, for a lot of balance sheets and things. But
why, Grant? I don't understand. I'm just kidding. Joke.
But like before COVID, or even like now, would you say retail was 70% sales and it was 30% online, vice versa? Like how have you seen the balance of sales been maybe the last sort of 3 years, and then obviously this year being a little bit of an anomaly, but there might be some things there that will be the same in the future?
Soapbox is in a really strange position because now we span so many different verticals. I
Mhm.
was totaling this up earlier, and we span 7 different verticals. And by vertical, what I mean by that is like, okay, so a vertical for us would be retail, like
Right.
brick and mortar, food, drug, mass, club, what usually people consider retail. And then another one for us would be office channel. So
Mm.
office channels like
Yep.
WB Mason or like SP Richards or Ascendant or Office Max, Office Depot, Staples, like that kind of office channel. Our e-commerce partners, so Grove, Box.com. I
Gotcha.
can't like Box.com they're some of the most down to earth, level headed, amazing partners we have.
Dude, every time I hear about it, it's the same thing, man. They are just kind of this underground. I mean, they are behemoths, right? But like they see the don't get put up there with the big boys. Like it's weird, but yeah, they are phenomenal, man. They're phenomenal at what they do.
Grove.co, they're phenomenal partners. So like the e-commerce partner channel,
Yep.
like not our site
Yep.
or sites.
Yep.
So retail, office, e-commerce. Another one for us is hospitality. We do a lot of work with Marriott, and also Lifetime Fitness. We do all of their shampoo, conditioner, body wash. So obviously that channel has been hurting.
What about schools?
We
Universities?
don't do schools or universities yet. We might, in a weird, strange way, actually take care of them through the office channel.
Okay.
So basically they are then fulfilling there, but we don't go after we're not a Jan San provider. in
Mhm.
terms of like, we don't have boots on the ground out there, like, scrubbing latrines or porta potties or, well, urinals.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
so there's a couple other channels that we exist in. But I think one of the interesting things about our brand is because of the mission, we are able to play in all of these. Whereas most brands will straddle two or three channels
Right.
or just focus all on one. So because of that diversification, like we now have been able to grow at a much faster pace when any one vertical starts to slow down or have a blip to it. And I think, for us, we out of all the different brands that exist in the health and hygiene space, or like, health and beauty is usually what the category is called from like a Nielsen or IRI standpoint,
Hmm.
like we were the oldest one for one. So we've had some time. I wish that we could have gotten our branding right from day one.
Sure.
If we would have done that, Grant, we would have had a gigantic leg up in terms of getting to market faster and all these other things. But
Let me ask you,
yeah,
why was that so difficult? I think, like or why did it take so long to get that part right?
um, we didn't know any better. That's the honest truth. We didn't know any better, and we also took some bad advice, and
Sure.
the learning curve was not fast enough for us. And then I think the other thing is that, like, if you're a D2C brand, well, if your product is zero and ones, right? If you're creating an app or you're creating a website and
Right.
somehow like or a SaaS product or whatever it might be, you can legitimately re-innovate or change the product overnight.
Yep. Great point.
Um, you can't do that when inventory is sitting on someone's shelf.
Mhm.
Like that's
Mhm.
going to take months, if not years, to try
Mhm.
to change that. There are great things about consumer product goods, and there are tough things about consumer product goods. So, what I don't envy in all my other friends who are tech entrepreneurs is that you can wake up and Google is now doing your thing for free, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh,
Right. Right.
well,
Yeah.
good game, everyone. Let's pack it up. But for CPG, at least you have a little bit of a heads up. Like you can kind of see where things are going and or review periods are happening. And the other great thing about CPG or consumer product goods is that the momentum builds upon itself, right? So it's really difficult to have an overnight success, meaning like within a year you're like, whoa. And most of the brands that people see that are overnight successes are actually like 10 or 15-year brands that they just realize now exist. Shea Moisture was around for 25 years. And people were like, oh man, you hear this new brand called Shea Moisture? I'm like, yeah, Ritual has been doing this for 15 years. Like there are a couple brands like Ollie, which is Olly,
Yep.
that was started by an industry veteran who had been doing it for a decade plus. Like Eric, Launch Method, School of Hard Knocks, learned a lot of hard lessons, but had a phenomenal relationship with Target, the retailer, and then basically saw a whole area within that store that was ripe for disruption, i.e., vitamins. And he was like, the consumer is not resonating with this because the front of pack is not communicating clearly to the
Yeah.
consumer.
I mean, Ollie does. I mean, when you walk in, they have like 7
Right,
different types of vitamins, and every
right,
single one is branded to that
right,
particular focus that
right,
this vitamin
right.
does. um,
RX Bar, another great
yeah.
example of they were chugging along for like a year, and I think it was like a year or 2 years. And their branding company that they worked with, that was the insight. The insight for
Mm.
them was they always wanted to put their ingredients on the front of the pack. Like they had that insight. The marketing agency just made it in
Look
in a
nice.
much more beautiful package
Yeah.
that then immediately connected to someone. They were like, "That's what I want." Right.
Mhm.
So, and then they also caught the paleo trend,
Yep.
and off and away they go. And I think that the other one that I like to refer back to in consumer product goods is um, Halo or Halo Top ice cream.
Okay.
I mean,
They're delicious.
their big insight. Oh, what'd you say?
They're delicious.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that, Grant, is like their innovation was that on the front of the pack, they put the thing that people
how many
Actually,
calories, how many fats.
right.
Yep.
Because everyone eats a pint, right? You don't buy a pint and eat half a
Yep.
pint. Like people buy a Ben and Jerry's pint and they eat the whole thing and then they feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Halo Top was like, we need to communicate the thing that people care about most, which surprisingly is not, this is going to taste delicious. It's going to, you don't need to feel bad about eating this whole thing, which we know you're going to eat anyways.
Yep.
Right. And like those disruptive consumer insights, when you get that right, that's where like you can have a 1 or 2 year ramp. You're like,
Well, you
whoa.
see it with the seltzer industry does, I think, a very similar thing where on the front it's like, this is 99 calories, right? Like it's
Right.
it's almost like you have to do that now, right? It's almost like the trend is becoming the norm, which I think is great, right? Because I think it's no different than looking on somebody's website, right? Like you get what, three to maybe 5 seconds where a person might just jump to the next one. It's the same thing with consumer products. I mean, you get that 3 seconds, and then just like you said, you can move your hand 6 inches over, and it's a completely different story, right? Different brand, different everything. So I think it's no different than looking at a website, how fast you can move on to somebody else's website. It's the same now with packaged products. But look, I think innovation in that space is can be a powerful thing too, right? I mean, to be able to speak that quickly to somebody and them not even buy it, like let's just say in your case, right? Them just buy it because they like the product, they like your messaging, they like what you're saying, not even knowing the impact behind it is what separates brands, right?
Right.
When that's just secondary and you already have them, then they find that out. I mean, that's, a customer for life, most likely.
Grant, I'm gonna say this especially because of your podcast and what you stand for and what Cause R stands for. People don't buy Soapbox, and I would argue that people don't buy Warby Parker, and people didn't buy Tom's because of the mission. They bought them because they wanted the product first and foremost. And it was funny. I was listening to another podcast where Impossible, the meatless meat company, was talking about how when they designed the Impossible Burger, how they had to make it not just as good, but better than meat. And they had to imitate all the things about meat so that meat lovers actually thought it was meat. And the host was like, well, why didn't you just say it wasn't meat? Like, why? And he was like, because in order to actually see a reduction in greenhouse gas, because cows and cattle and livestock, are a huge contributor to that. And then also, to perpetuate and build this idea of a more just world to, our animal friends, they needed to actually subvert consumers into making them choose a vegan option.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're that devious. I don't think that Soapbox is out here tricking people into 1 for 1 and or helping their neighbor who they do not even know.
Right.
But I think that we lead with it's not about cause. You're not here for cause. You're here for an amazing deep conditioner that's going to take care of your hair and make you think that you're on an island with coconuts. Like that's the point. That's the product promise.
Yeah.
The cherry on top is, as you said, when people find out, they're like, oh, I did something good, right? Like that's because they're not in the shampoo aisle and they're not in the liquid hand soap aisle to donate to charity. Most consumers think that they already do that enough. Like that's where their head's at. So they're there to buy for themselves. And you need to hit everything that they care about in the hierarchy of which they care about. And then the cherry on top is the fact that they get back.
But I think every company that we're talking about here, it kind of goes back to what we said, is that using really good design is paramount, right? Like I think the one thing that I hope people maybe get out of this conversation is that invest in that early on, especially if you're in the package space, because like you said, it's not, you can't change, you could change a website overnight, but you can't change your inventory overnight. And I think it's such a powerful point you made, man, and learning stuff like that the hard way and,
Mm,
you being honest about it is going to really help a ton of people, especially like in the impact space, to understand that the business side of things, the traditional business mechanisms that has, for good or bad, made capitalism what it is, right? It gets people to buy stuff, right? It does a really good job at that. So if we could take that ideology and put it into a better space, that's when things really, really change and really, really get better for not only good in the world, not only people who need it, but also it puts capitalism in a better place and it
right,
helps capitalism stay alive, right?
right.
That's another main point here. We have to reframe. I think it's our job to reframe what capitalism can be, right? It's like America. It's an idea that it's not quite finished yet. It can be something.
A, a more perfect union that we always strive for. And I think, Grant, to all your points, like absolutely. And I think one of the things that you said is that, like, how do you make a system better? One of the things that I've noticed is that consumers, like, a purpose behind your brand are like table stakes. Like, there's just like millennial consumers and Gen Z consumers, and like that is just like cool. So how is your brand, through the production of more plastic bottles
Yep.
and putting more stuff that people probably don't need on a shelf, what is your existence or reason for existence? Like, why do you need to exist?
Hmm.
uh
It's a good
and
question.
no, it's a phenomenal, like, and I think it's one where, like, not to get way too deep, but like throughout college I was trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Because I knew enough about myself that I love to work
Hmm.
and I love to be committed to a cause. And I want to be committed to something that I want to spend day, night, and weekends working towards, that I could justify was worth all the time and effort I was going to put into. And making money for my own personal gain just never did it for me. Like, it never like clicked, and I was like, yeah, like, I want to do that because I don't like fancy cars and I don't need a gigantic house, and I buy clothes I think about once a year because, like, I'm like, oh, this stuff has holes in it. So,
Well,
like,
it's
I'm
about
like,
that time.
yeah, maybe this like war tattered flag should not be what I'm like wearing to this meeting. So like, I just, for me, I needed to find something that actually genuinely was worth it. And I kept on going back to, like, there are people who care about really nuanced issues and or getting greater education equality, or getting women as they should to be paid the same as men, and all these incredibly valid causes that I was like, yeah, I could get behind that, and I could do that. And then I just kept on going down like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to where I finally was just like, no child should die from diarrhea,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, cool. If I'm gonna spend the
Right.
next X amount of years of my life, and I thought I was only gonna be spending like 5. I was just like, oh, we're gonna start Soapbox and it's gonna do great. And like, I'm gonna, like, we're gonna get acquired by blah 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 blah, and like it's gonna be great. And like, 10 years from that dance, well, hey. But like, for me, I want to do this for the next 10. And if we were to find a strategic partner that could amplify our mission, then great, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
but but like, I love what we do. The best part of my job is working with our aid partners. We hired an impact coordinator. Her name's Cecilia. She's phenomenal. She gets to have the best job in the company, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and that's interfacing and working with all the different amazing partners that we then get to see doing phenomenal things. And our customers make all of that possible. So that's
Well,
just it, that like you want to get out of bed in the morning. It's just like knowing that, and I say this to my team, we don't know their names and we don't know their faces. But if you just look at statistics and the amount of bars of soap that we have donated and hygiene programs that we funded, I know for a fact that our consumers have saved lives.
mhm.
And that is just, that will get you through any bad day.
Yeah, I think it's in, and after this, I'll wrap it up and end it on the future question as we're talking about, the next 5 to 10 years or so. But I think the one thing you said, I think it's really important for, I think, companies to understand that maybe they can't do both at scale. Maybe they can't do impact by themselves at scale and do business themselves at scale, where having a real deal strategic partner in the impact space, let them do what they do. I think I just love the model of, I think you see companies maybe spin off their own nonprofit, right, within, their company structure. And it's like, it might be tough to do everything really good. But I think seeking out their strategic nonprofit partners, having one person that is a liaison to them, and they sort of like really, that's just what they do every day. To me, that's the perfect marriage of how the business can scale and stay sustainable from a business side. As you scale, the impact could scale as well, because you're not going to deal with that full time. That's your partner's job, right? Which is great, man. I think a lot of companies should take notice of that. But we'll end on the future, man. And I know it's tough in this era of what is tomorrow going to bring. It's hard to look at the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. But I'm sure you've had discussions. I'm sure you've had some team meetings about, and just personally, inside that you have conversations with yourself. What are some of the missions and maybe goals for the next 5 years, let's say, and what does that look like? As much as you can divulge, I guess.
Yeah, no. So we shocker, because I know that you probably would want to talk about some of this stuff earlier, but I know that we're coming on time, and also for anyone still listening, thank you. Uh, appreciate you listening to my overhypeness. You're like, settle down, soap man, settle down. Bad when you're laughing at your own joke. Anyway, point is, we actually own a overall company called Impact Driven Brands. Impact Driven Brands owns Soapbox. We started with Soapbox. Soapbox was the baby. And then we acquired another company called Bushwick Kitchen that has another impact component where we fund charities that are part of the ethos of the brand. And then we are readying the launch of another brand. So for us, I am just so incredibly excited for what the total amount of impact that we're going to be able to do, and how we're going to be able to, through everything that we need to do on a daily basis, through everyday items that you need to buy for yourself and for your family and for your loved ones, like how can we make that consumption simultaneously make the world a better place, make a more just place? That is what I'm super excited about. I know that's super vague. We have another brand. You're going to see Soapbox in so many other stores in the next couple months, especially in 2021. I think you actually might see some television ads, which is like that. That to me is just crazy. And I think making the world, as you said earlier, like in a constant effort to try to make a more perfect union. It's the same thing that we look at in terms of like, there are a lot of social justice problems and a lot of social ills. How can the consumption of like natural shampoo or liquid hand soap or hand sanitizer, like how does that in a small way help and be a part of the solution? That's what I'm excited about.
Amazing, man. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy, and I think what I'd like to do, the whole reason I started this, I have another podcast I just started called Investing in Impact, talking to social impact firms and VCs and angel investors and people like yourself who are starting social impact brand portfolios, because I think the finance side of all this is very important. Just as we're seeing consumers change their habits, I think we're starting to see investors do the same. And I think that is going to be a massive plus for the industry that we love so much. And it's really great to see, and it's great to see real capital that usually goes into traditional markets come into the social impact space at a real level, man. And it can really disrupt a lot of things, and disrupt it in a good way. By disruption, I mean disrupt people out of poverty, and get better education, and health and hygiene, water. I mean, look, all these problems I think can be solved by both creating impactful companies and having investors understand that this is a real model for the next generation of humanity, really. That's how I think capitalism lives on. I think that's how the business world lives on, and I think that's how we take the next step in doing good and giving back is not just charity. I think it's a blend of business and philanthropy. So awesome. Congrats, man. Well, maybe we'll have you on that show one day to talk about that.
One day. Give us just a couple more years.
A couple more years. It's a date.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Awesome,
well, I appreciate you taking the time. I really do, man. And enjoy the rest of your week. And obviously, best of luck in 2020. And I'll keep an eye out for